we also have to say that our members are football fans. So in that case, uh, the conversation around human rights, labor rights, and sports is always accompanied by jokes or competitions or teasing on who will win the World Cup. So this is I would say, the human side of our struggle for decent work in mega sporting events. So that's why, uh, before we open the next session, someone who's been in the competitive discussions of football within the family would like to greet the conference, because not only they are always in the top level of football, but also they hosted the 2014 World Cup. So let us welcome our colleague Bebeto from Salvador, Brazil, to give us a statement. We will have a short video from him.
Olá, companheiros. Em 2014, o Brasil recepcionou a Copa do Mundo. Os trabalhadores, naquele processo, se organizaram através de uma imensa campanha realizada pela ICM Brasil, chamado Fair Play, ou seja, jogos limpos na Copa, permitiu que os trabalhadores tivessem sucesso a partir da campanha realizada pela ICM, que unificou as nossas agendas de negociações, trabalhou a dimensão de saúde e segurança no trabalho, apresentou uma negociação em caráter nacional, tudo isso para preservar os direitos sociais do trabalho e valorizar a classe trabalhadora e sua agenda negocial. A experiência produziu conquistas importantes no aumento do salário, na prevenção à saúde e, acima de tudo, permitiu que os trabalhadores aumentassem a sindicalização, aumentando também a representação das organizações de trabalhadores. Por isso, nós temos a alegria de dizer que a ICM contribuiu decisivamente para a melhoria da vida da classe trabalhadora brasileira. E é isso que nós queremos que chegue ao Catar, que as organizações de trabalhadores que organizam os migrantes, organizam a agenda de negociação daqueles que estão construindo os estádios no Catar, também possam ter essas mesmas vitórias, com segurança no trabalho, aumento dos seus salários, melhoria no padrão de vida de todos os trabalhadores e, acima de tudo, um trabalho decente que garanta a dignidade humana. Por isso, eu quero aqui, em nome dos trabalhadores brasileiros, em nome das organizações sindicais brasileiras, mandar um abraço fraternal, um abraço grandioso aos trabalhadores do Catar, dizendo que nós estamos juntos na mesma agenda, que para vencer o neoliberalismo, para vencer o capitalismo, é preciso a unidade da classe trabalhadora. E tenho certeza que as organizações sindicais em Catar, que atuam para preservar os direitos dos trabalhadores, saberão também lutar dignamente e conquistar como nós no Brasil fizemos. Um abraço, saúde, estamos juntos, pois a nossa luta é universal.
Thank you, Bebeto. Thank you, comrades in the Brazilian trade union movement, and also for that great hosting of the World Cup in 2014. Now, I would like to welcome the moderator for this Workers' Voices and Safety in COVID Pandemic. This is a session which is, as mentioned, divided into three parts. We will have first the colleagues in Doha, and then we will have our colleagues who are all based in Europe with the unions that signed with BWI, the international framework agreements, and then later on the session on COVID pandemic. Rita is our chair of the International Women's Committee, and she is also the chair of the BWI ad hoc working group on migration. And she is from Switzerland, our affiliate in Switzerland, which is UNIA. So Rita, welcome to you, and I pass it on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Toss. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good break. For some of us, it was the lunch break. For others, just a coffee break. Let us now start with this last panel of today. And as Toss yet mentioned, it will be a three-part panel. This first session will include workers' representatives and migrant community leaders, and they will share experiences, particularly their gains and victories. Furthermore, they can put forward suggestions on sustaining the gains of the workers' representation in the company, as well as on the company as on the national level. Unfortunately, we cannot have online connection to workplaces due to the health protocols that are still existing. The second part of this session is to present the innovation, adaptation, and best practices relative to COVID-19 impact in workplaces. For this first part, we have 7 speakers who will share their experience and insights. We will have first the migrants themselves, the voices of the migrants who are based in Qatar, and afterwards the voices of union leaders who are in Europe. First, let me call Daniel Waitaka. Daniel is the workers' representative from Supreme Committee's Workers' Welfare Forums. Daniel is a worker representative from the HBK contracting company working in the Lusail Stadium. He has been with the Workers' Welfare Forum of HBK since January 2018. He's from Kenya, and he feels privileged to be a part of this Supreme Committee project and its policies, as it has helped him evolve in many ways, including his work-life balance. Perhaps we will hear more about that. Please, Daniel, you have the floor.
Okay, good afternoon, members. Good evening to all. We are not sharing the same time. Okay, as you have heard, my name is Daniel Waithaka. I am grateful to be here to attend this session. Thank you for the BWI and Supreme Committee for making me being a part of you. Okay, I joined my company on May 2018. I joined my company on May 2018. And since then, before I came here, before I came to Qatar, I always got that mentality in me, because those who already had come to these Gulf countries, they used to share some experiences. So even before I came, I was too much afraid inside me, because they were saying when you go there is mistreatment, there is forced, you work for so long hours, you don't even have time for your family. But when I came here, I learned that the company I'm working for is a project for the Supreme Committee. When I learned that it's a project for the Supreme Committee, there were those rules which they have set, the standards which they have set for their own people. And to me, it made me erase those bad mentalities I got about the Gulf countries. Because when I came here, the Supreme Committee, they proved those who are saying things wrong. Because for one, in my project, the Supreme Committee, they put some standards which everybody, no matter the position you are in, you must be following. For example, the fear that I got that when I go there, I'm going to be overworked, that one was not the case with Supreme Committee. The standard which they had set, it was you work for 6 days, different from the one I'd had from home. You work for 6 days, you work for 8 hours plus 2, but now my company, we work for 8 hours plus 2. Eight is the two companies over time. So you see, I got that mentality that when I go there, I'll be working for long. I don't have time for my family. So when I joined and knew that I'm working for a Supreme Committee body, I felt that now I'm safeguarded. I have a body which is looking at me. I'm safeguarded. And being the welfare representative, this thing have really helped me so much because in me, I feel that the leadership skills in me, they are still growing. Being a welfare leader, I can access any person in the company, maybe the management, the accommodation team, the welfare team, and I've also gained trust from my fellow workers. Okay, being working in a supreme committee company is also good, and also the BWI for us the workers. We feel that the way they are treating us is the best way which people can ever be treated. Because Supreme Committee, they always have so many interviews with us. They come, they speak to us, they ask about what we are going through. We tell them everything, they note down, and then they make a follow-up. They always make a follow-up on the issues which we have given them. Because per month, we must meet with either one of them during the workers forum, workers welfare forum. They come, whichever problems I've corrected from my people, I submit them to the table. Those which those which need some small duration, I'm given that time frame. So when I go back to my fellow countrymen, I just tell them that okay, I've spoken with the welfare department, and this is the solution to the problems you had given me. Those which have not been completed by now have been given up to this time frame. So at least I've got that trust from my people that whatever thing they give me, I take them, the solution must be found. If it takes long time, I still will go back to the welfare management, and then them themselves will call for a meeting for all and address that issue. Also, I think that working under the Supreme Committee and BWI towards the workers, mostly us who work in the construction industries, most of us who work in the construction industries, there is some kind of clothes which they designed for us, the cooling vest. Early before, early before they brought those clothes, we used to have so much problems because here the weather is too much hot. So with the first uniform which we were putting on, we used to sweat a lot. And you know, when you sweat a lot, your body feels weak. But now they designed another kind of cloth for us, a vest, which is very good, mostly in this weather, because the cooling vest which they brought, they are in a position to cool down your body temperature to a certain degree. So no matter how hot it is, the cooling vest which you are wearing, your temperature shall be good. You can work for long hours. And then the other thing for Supreme Committee, mm, the living standards which they put for us. Because the mentality we got that okay, we are going to a place where we room. Those who had come before are telling us that the rooms which you are going to be living, it's you flock in a room like 10 persons in one room. But when we came here, we all of us, mostly me and my team, we were happy for working in a Supreme Committee project because they have put up very good standards. The mentality that there was that the room is going to be crowded, that one we don't have. They set a very good condition, working condition. They ensure that we take good food, we have time for our family. There is no nationalism in the company. All in the Supreme Committee projects, all people are treated as equal. There is no favorism, and that is a big appreciation, mostly from my side. Also, the Supreme Committee during the hard times of COVID, they really showed us what they mean by taking care of us. They used to We used to have awareness. They created awareness because when the COVID came, everybody in the whole world, we all got that tension. Now that this thing which have come, it's here to finish us. We are going to die in foreign countries. What about our families back at home? But the Supreme Committee, they came, they talked to us, they told us now this thing is here. And for it being here, we still can do something to avoid it. So please, we ask you to do this, follow this, follow this. So they created all the awareness. They created to us all the awareness, which if we follow that, we are going to be free from the COVID. They ensured that even in our accommodation, we have that isolation ward when people got tested, or maybe somebody got the kind of symptoms, the COVID symptoms. We got one side which was set apart. It was used as the isolation ward. So when people are tested, maybe some of them were positive or they were symptomatic, they were used to be set aside. And then the Supreme Committee, in help with the welfare department of my company, they would arrange with the Ministry of Public Health, and the people would be shifted. They were taken to the quarantine facilities, after which they stayed there like for a number of days. After they come back, the Supreme Committee had made it an order that let these people be still in the isolation, and then we do another checkup. So even us, when the people are released and they came to us, in us we knew that these people who are in quarantine, it's sure because the Supreme Committee have already put them, they have made the arrangements, and now they have come. We are now free from. So they did everything. They ensured that we are getting the mask on time. They made order that everything, every area be fitted with hand sanitizers. They called the doctors from Ministry of Public Health. They came, they created awareness to us. We were showed how to use hand sanitizers, how to wear the face mask, and to observe things like social distancing and like that. I think it could.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel, for your very encouraging experience you shared with us. I heard about this cooling vest from our inspector, and I think it's very interesting innovation, and perhaps we can also bring this innovation from Qatar to Europe or to Africa, because sometimes we also have hot summers. So thank you again, Daniel. And now let me call Ashraful Islam. He is also a workers' representative from a workers' welfare committee. Ashraf is from Bangladesh. He is working in Qatar as carpenter, churchhead, in a multinational company, Qatari Dyer Vinci Construction. And he started there from 2015. He's on his second term as an elected worker welfare committee member. And he is a COVID-19 survivor. So Ashraful, please share your experiences with us. You have the floor.
मैं कतर में QDBC कंपनी थे एक कारपेंटर चार्जर हिसाब से काम कर रहा है LRT प्रोजेक्ट डेपो में। तो मैं 2015 साल में कतर QDBC कंपनी में ज्वाइन किया। तो इसके अलावा मैं ये कंपनी में दो बार इलेक्टेड वेलफेयर कमेटी मेंबर भी हो। हम एक कोरोना पॉजिटिव वाला है। तो जब कोरोना पॉजिटिव हुआ पहला हमें कोरोना पॉजिटिव होना पहला मेरा साइड में साथ में काम करने वाला एक आदमी को कोरोना पॉजिटिव मिला था। तो फिर इसका कोरोना पॉजिटिव मिलने के बाद कंपनी हमारा थोड़ा साइट का काम बंद कर दिया। बंद करने के बाद ये जो साइट में लोगों को काम करता था ये पूरा लोग को आइसोलेशन के स्वाब टेस्ट के लिए आइसोलेट में रखा था। तो फिर स्वाब टेस्ट करने के बाद अराउंड 102 आदमी को कोरोना पॉजिटिव मिला। पॉजिटिव मिलने के बाद कंपनी ये पूरा आदमी को 102 आदमी को गवर्नमेंट आइसोलेशन में भेज दिया, ट्रांसफर कर दिया। तो ट्रांसफर करने के बाद में कंपनी सब आदमी को ट्रांसफर कर दे उधर। ट्रांसफर करने के बाद हम 21 दिन क्वारंटीन सेंटर में था। जब मैं क्वारंटीन में था तब हमारा मन में लगता था हम मर जाएगा, एंड हमारा फैमिली का क्या होगा, कौन मेरा बच्चा लोगों को संभालेगा हमको बिना, ऐसा मन में लगता था क्वेश्चन। लेकिन ऐसा हजारों क्वेश्चन मन में आता था, लाखों क्वेश्चन, लेकिन मोहन अल्लाह पाक रब्बुल आलमीन रहमते हम बच गया। थैंक्स अल्लाह। वो टाइम पे मेरा साथ में जो साथीगण था वो लोगगण से टाइम और दूसरा टेंशन में था। वो टाइम पे मेरा कंपनी इन हाउस काउंसिलरगण जैसा साइकोलॉजिकल ट्रेनिंग लिया मेरा कंपनी का बहुत इन हाउस काउंसिलर है। वो लोग टाइम पे फोन करके हम लोग को साथ बातचीत करता था और बातचीत करके हमारा मूवमेंट को फ्री रखने के लिए बहुत कोशिश किया। जब फोन पर बातचीत करके बहुत मेंटली सपोर्ट दिया था इन हाउस काउंसिलरगण, कैंप स्टाफगण भी हमेशा फोन करके हम लोगगण कौन सा हालत में है था, हालत सुन के अच्छा समझाया। जो पेशेंट ज्यादा नर्वस था उनको फ्री काउंसिल दिया था कंपनी का स्टाफ काउंसिलरगण। तो ये मेरे स्पेशली मेरा मेंटली के लिए और दूसरा आदमी को मेंटली के लिए बहुत अच्छा सपोर्ट था, जो उसको फ्री रखना है। जैसा नहीं सोचना है जो कोरोना वायरस हो गया अभी हम मर जाएगा। तो ये मेरे से बहुत अच्छा लगा। ये परदेश में बैठ के इतना साहस जो आदमी दिला रहा है बांचने के लिए, जो आशा दे रहा है, तो उसका सपोर्ट बहुत जरूरी था, वही वो लोग किया। तो उसी टाइम से जो पॉजिटिव हुआ, जिसका पास पॉजिटिव था कोरोना, उसको ही मालूम है कैसा लगता था। जो परदेश में अगर वो मर जाएगा, अगर डाइट हो जाएगा, किसी ना किसी एक दिन तो जाना ही है। फिर भी सब आदमी को ये दुनिया से किसी जो जन्म लिया उसके एक दिन तो जाना ही है। फिर भी कोई कोशिश करता है, जो हमारा फैमिली है, बच्चा है, तो उसको कोई सीरियल में रखे, कोई लाइन में रखे, मर जाएगा तो थोड़ा दिल में खुश मिलता है। फिर भी सबका मालिक है महान अल्लाह पाक रब्बुल आलमीन। तो तो इसका मालिक है महान अल्लाह पाक रब्बुल आलमीन।
Thank you very much, Ashraful, for having shared with us this terrible experience of being sick of COVID-19, and especially if you are far away from your family. But we are all very glad.
घर से तो बहुत दूर है, अभी कितना 6000 किलोमीटर दूर है हम अभी हमारे घर से, लेकिन डेली बातचीत चल रहा है हमारा फैमिली से, हमारा बच्चा से।
Yes.
ये लेके हम लोग इधर चल रहा है, तो आगे भी चलना चाहूंगा। आप लोगों को मेरे के लिए दुआ किए। हम भी लोगों के लिए सोशल कर रहे हैं, जो हम वेलफेयर कमेटी का मेंबर है। दूसरा को अच्छा करने के लिए सोच रहा है, दूसरा का अच्छा करके मैं जी रहा है। मेरा दिल में ये खुश लगता है जो हम दूसरा का अच्छा कर पा रहे हैं। दूसरा को एक बात बोलेगा, दो बात बोलेगा तो वो समझ रहा है। मेरा भी जैसा और भी बहुत आदमी है टेंशन में। हम फिजिकल टीम का एक बॉडी भी हो, जैसा एक फर्स्ट एड का ट्रेनिंग लेता है, मैं ऐसा भी एक बॉडी भी हो। तो इस हिसाब से मैं बहुत मेरा दोस्त लोगों को, फ्रेंड को मैं समझाता है कि ऐसा नहीं, ऐसा करो, अपना परिवार का अच्छा करो, अपना परिवार का भलाई करो। ऐसा में हम लोग चलता रहता है। तो कोरोना वायरस शुरू होने का समय हमारा सेफ्टी टीम, कैंप स्टाफ टीम सब मिलके कैसे कोविड-19 से बचना है, ये सब बातचीत मीटिंग करके करके बताया जाएगा वर्करদের सचेतनता बढ़ाने के लिए। जैसा रेगुलर हाथ धोआ, मास्क पहना, लोगों का गैदरिंग में नहीं जाना, काम के लिए रूम से बाहर होना, साइट पे डायरेक्ट जाना, साइट से ठीक डायरेक्ट रूम पे आना, फैमिली के साथ ज्यादा टाइम बातचीत करना, बाहर ज्यादा टाइम नहीं देना है। तो रूम থেকে साइड काम के लिए जावा और काम शेष बाद रूम में फेरा एक्स्ट्रा। इसके अलावा हम वेलफेयर कमेटी मेंबर सब मिलके टूल बॉक्स मीटिंग कैसे कोविड-19 से बचना है ये विषय बहुत बातचीत किया। जैसा हमेशा साबुन दे के हाथ धोआ, सैनिटाइजरिंग व्यवहार करा, अपना रूम डोर को सैनिटाइजरिंग करके क्लीन करके रखना, बेसी समय रूम पे थाका, फैमिली के साथ बातचीत करा, अपना को टेंशन फ्री रखा, सोशल डिस्टेंस रेखे चला, सबसे अल्लाहर काছে दुआ मांगा जा कोविड से सारा पृथ्वी मानुष को मुक्ति मिल जा सकता है। हम जैसा से कोई हिंदू, मुस्लिम, क्रिश्चियन, बौद्ध नहीं, सब आदमी को अल्लाह ने परेशानी से मुक्ति कर सकता है। यही हमारा दुआ है। और जब मैं गवर्नमेंट क्वारंटाइन में था तब मैं देखा कतार गवर्नमेंट बहुत अच्छा ट्रीटमेंट दिया था। कतार सब लोगों को एक ही नर्सिंग दिया किया, किसी को अलग नहीं देखा। मेरा कहने का मतलब किसी नेशनलिटी जैसा बांग्लादेश, इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, फिलीपीनो, नेपाल, उगांडा, कनाडा, केनिया, नाइजीरिया जैसा साउथ अफ्रीकन आदमी लोग को सबको एक ही जैसा देखा गया, एक ही ट्रीटमेंट दिया। तो ये कतार गवर्नमेंट का ये ट्रीटमेंट का सही रास्ता, सही इस्तेमाल मेरा से बहुत अच्छा लगा। मैं देखा तो कतार गवर्नमेंट का सपोर्ट का मेरा जिंदगी भर जितना दिन में बच के रहेगा इतना दिन मेरा याद रहेगा। जो लोग कैसे फ्री ट्रीटमेंट दिया था, कितना अच्छा करके, कतार गवर्नमेंट बहुत अच्छा है। फिलहाल हम शारीरिक और मानसिक दो दिक से ही सही है। हर रोज ड्यूटी में जा रहा है, ड्यूटी कर रहा है अपना। हम स्टाफ से 4 जन है, मेरे अंडर में बहुत आदमी लोग रहता है, ऊपर से हमारा सुपरवाइजर है, इंजीनियर है, उन लोग का साथ बातचीत करके काम समझ में लेता है, फिर हम काम हाथ में लेता है, फिर हमारा वर्कर से काम करा रहा है। इंशाल्लाह मेंटली सब से मैं अभी सही है। और हमारा साथ में जो बंदा लोग था वो भी सब लोग सही है, सब लोग सही ड्यूटी कर रहा है, सब काम कर रहा है, तो किसी को कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। इंशाल्लाह हमारा कंपनी का जितना आदमी 102 आदमी हम लोग क्वारंटाइन में गया था, सब आदमी इंशाल्लाह बच के आया, किसी को कोई नुकसान नहीं पहुंचा। अभी तो हम सब आदमी सही है, मेंटली प्लस शारीरिक सब कुछ दिख से हम लोग सही है। तो हम लोग को लिए आप भी दुआ करना है। अगले आ रहा है इलेक्शन, इंशाल्लाह आगे जिंदगी में जितना रहेगा इंशाल्लाह इलेक्शन करेगा, सुप्रीम कमेटी में आएगा, सुप्रीम कमेटी के भी इसलिए थैंक्स। और BWI कंपनी को हमको इनवाइट करने के लिए इसको थैंक्स जाना रहे। तो धन्यवाद आप लोग सब लोगों को, थैंक्स मेरी तरफ से, मेरा कंपनी का तरफ से। ओके
Thank you, Ashraful, for your words, and we are all glad that you and your colleagues survived and that you are well now. Finally, from the migrant workers' voice, we have Kasim Sahid Ademola. He is a representative from the Community Leaders Forum. He is with the Nigerian in Diaspora organization in Qatar. Kazim is a volunteer coordinator of Qatar's National Human Rights Committee, which is the national human rights institution of the state of Qatar for the various African communities. He speaks fluently Arabic. And Kazim, you have the floor now.
Thank you so much. I'm really humbled to be in this platform to talk on behalf of communities, our African communities here in Qatar, as regards what has evolved, what has happened. In the past few months, I can say, like from the beginning of the year, actually, since March, when COVID-19 was first, the first case was first reported in Qatar here. I think if we are to talk actually about the people's welfare in terms of community, our communities here in Qatar in general, the expatriates in Qatar, I think since the beginning of 2010, when the World Cup was assigned to Qatar, 2022, that Qatar has been won the push to win the World Cup. It's been a very welcoming development here. I think most things, many things have changed in terms of the laws to improve the welfare of workers, migrant workers, especially those that are working in the construction field in Qatar here, as regards the World Cup stadiums and several other facilities that cover the World Cup.
I think that we try later with Kazim, and perhaps you can solve his technical problem in the meantime. And now to our colleagues from Europe. Is it okay, Tos?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can proceed first and we come back to Kazim later. Yeah.
As you know, BWI is a global union and operates globally in all aspects of work. As an international representative body of workers, we sign international framework agreements with multinational companies. We are happy that we were able to achieve these agreements in relation to our sports campaigns. For the 2022 World Cup, we have applicable agreements with Vinci of France, Basics of Belgium, and with Salini Impregilo of Italy. So let us take the opportunity to hear our comrades from these countries, Italy, Belgium, and France. We have asked them to give a 3-minute comment on the importance of the BWI sports campaign to their unions, while noting also that in 2024, we will have the Paris Olympics, and in 2026, the Winter Olympics in Milano and Cortina, so hosted by France and Italy. So please share your experience if you have been to Doha for the BWI mission inspection, and please share your participation and other actions in the campaign in Qatar, especially put the light of the framework agreements with Vinci, Basics, and Salini Impregilo in Qatar. So first, I would like to ask Claudio Sottile, the International Secretary of Filca CISL in Italy, to share his experiences. Claudio, la parola a te.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you to everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. We can say that the sport campaigns organized by BWI began in 2010, I think, in South Africa, if I remember well, have been increasingly structured and strengthened and or created where they were not present, the protections of workers engaged in construction works, both from a salary or health and safety point of view, and last but not least, the aspect regarding the recruitment of workers as well in some countries. The reality of Qatar at the very beginning was quite difficult. Let's say that required a greater commitment, effort in order to organize the campaign for several reasons. Not least the absence of a trade union movement, local trade union to interface with. Thanks to the IFA that BWI, the Italian trade unions, signed with the Salini Impregilo. It's an Italian multinational operating there for the construction of infrastructure and stadium as well. We had the possibility to visit the Salini Impregilo building site twice. The first time was in 2014 for the construction of 7 stops of the Red Line of the underground in Doha. That was in 2014. And then the second one was in 2017 when we visited the building site and the dormitories for the construction of Al Bayt Stadium near Doha. I can say that the experience of these initiatives carried out in Qatar during this year led to a huge and significant improvements regarding the working human condition. If I make a comparison between the first visit in 2014 and the second one in 2017, there were really very huge and significant improvements and changes. There is other things to do, of course, but it's important that we move on forwards, and the first steps are very important because we can reach other achievements as well. And I think that the improvement we could notice during the second visit can be attributed to the MOU that was signed in 2016 between the Supreme Committee and BWI. That's for sure that this improvement have been taken and would be possible through the signature of this important document. And we know that BWI and the Supreme Committee work together jointly. And we can say that the sort of social dialogue that is established between the parties, let's say, it was very good. It worked in a very good way in this occasion. So we think that this good relation, let's say sort of industrial relation in some meaning, could continue. It should be extended to other working aspects in the future and in all the future building sites, due to the fact that many European multinationals are monitoring the situation in the Middle East and in Qatar especially, in order to have other possibility to operate in this area. So I think that this is the reason why Qatar can be an example for all other countries in this area, in the Middle East, because they had a step forward just to go to meet with workers' fundamental rights and working rights. That's very important because I can say that when we with this campaign, BWI and its affiliates, all the participants in these campaigns, could help a lot the workers. We had experiences just before my intervention of all the some of the workers that are operating there in the construction in the sport campaigns and in the sport infrastructures. And so we can say that we could be more incisive and helpful for higher and higher protection of our workers there, of all the workers there. And it's the same feeling we have at the national level when we transfer our work to at the national level, when we have our statutory meetings in our trade union, and we inform them what we do at international level. And I think that all the Italian trade union movement is very proud of this commitment that we have, of the solidarity committed that we have brought, and especially in this part of the world, in Qatar. That's all. I try to be concise. I'm sorry that I have to leave, as I already informed the organizers. I have to leave because I have another mega event of my trade union starting in 10 minutes, and I have to switch and go there for a very big. And we will talk about Qatar sport campaign, international matters as well. I'm on behalf of this. And I'm sorry, I cannot continue to go on this conference, and even tomorrow I have another engagement. But I wish you a very fruitful conference, and we have to continue to operate in this way, because in this way we will have all workers all over the world that are protected by the working and human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Grazie, Claudio, for your statement. And I give the floor now to Gianni de Vlaming. He is the National Secretary of Construction, FGTB, from Belgium. Gianni, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rita. You can hear me? Okay. So I will give a short testimony about the IFA, the International Framework Agreement with the Belgian company Basics, also known as SIXCO or Six Construct. As you know, the main goal of an IFA is the enforcement of respect for the international standards, such as freedom of organization, respect for workers' rights, information, non-discrimination. An agreement signed between BWI, the European Work Council, and the national federations of the trade unions. So I should say that the agreement with Basics is the only agreement we could sign with a multinational construction company in Belgium. The signing dates from 2017, which means I cannot bring to you a long-term evaluation, but as always, we should say that there are weak points and strong points in the agreement. First of all, the company signs on a voluntary base, which means that there is no sanction possible in case of no respect of the agreement. The company can also use the agreement as a kind of label of marketing, international marketing, and offers no long-term solution. It means that the company always maintains the balance of power. On the positive side, I must underline the aspects of international solidarity. International solidarity, which is very important for us trade unions, and also the possibility for the trade union or trade unions to control the attitude of the multinational company worldwide by checking more or less closely the control, the enforcement of the IFA provisions. Something special in the Basics agreement is that we have set up a committee, kind of a reference group, to monitor the enforcement of the IFA. And that reference group gathers at least once a year, to visit the construction site worldwide for joint inspections, which is very important in this kind of agreements. Last February, we could visit the building plot where the Mohammed VI Tower is built in Rabat by Basics in Morocco with our beloved colleague Jin Sook, where we organized discussions with the local directions, but also with the responsibles of the multinational companies, and also directly with construction workers. A sad example I have to share with you is the death of a construction worker, a subcontractor in Qatar, August 2018, where no direct information is sent to the steering group nor to the national unions. After mediation, there was an important financial compensation for the family, naturally, never in compensation for the death of a husband, a father, or a brother. So, as a conclusion, I want to respect the timing you gave me, Rita. As conclusion, the International Framework Agreement is a very good opportunity for national and international federations, trade unions to control the international activities of multinational companies. As I already said, there are weak points and strong points. The strong points, undeniable, the elements of information and consultation of workers, the international solidarity, and stronger networks between international, national unions and the European Work Council. Also, some weak points is the compulsory nature of the agreement, which would allow for effective sanctions in case of no respect, and a generalization of these agreements to other multinational companies in the sector must definitely be improved. So, Rita, I will end up hereby our intervention, my intervention, and a warm solidarity greetings from Brussels, Belgium.
Thank you very much, Gianni. We all know that multinational agreements are not perfect, but we are working to make them better, of course. Thank you. I give the floor now to Jean-Pascal. Jean-Pascal François, who is the International Secretary of our affiliate from CGT in France. Jean-Pascal, à toi la parole.
Donc, je m'exprime en français. Donc, bonjour à toutes et tous. Merci Rita pour ta modération et une grosse pensée des camarades de la CGT pour Jin Sook qui nous a quittés récemment. Donc, je ne répéterai pas ce qu'a dit Claudio sur la méthode, la pratique des inspections au Qatar ou ce que vient de dire Gianni sur l'intérêt d'avoir des accords multinationaux. Où j'irai, c'est sur l'utilité, nous, en tant que syndicalistes nationaux, de travailler sur ce qui nous appartient, c'est-à-dire nos grands groupes ou nos entreprises multinationales. 92% de la main-d'œuvre d'une entreprise multinationale en France sont des salariés sous-traités. Et c'est là que notre travail international doit cibler, c'est-à-dire que c'est là que les pratiques dérivent et que les entreprises se comportent mal. Parce que si on regarde concrètement les salariés d'une entreprise, ce qu'on pourrait appeler salariés organiques d'une entreprise, il n'y a pas de problème, ou peu de problèmes. Où se passent les problèmes, ce sont sous les sous-traitants ou les salariés détachés. La France, par exemple, est, alors tout le monde ne le sait peut-être pas, mais on est les vainqueurs de la dernière Coupe du Monde de football. En tant que tel, ça ne sert à rien, sauf que médiatiquement, on a, par rapport au Qatar, un véritable levier pour faire bouger les choses. Si la campagne carton rouge pour la FIFA a si bien marché en France, c'est parce que le football touche la population française. Et les gens sont intéressés quand même des conditions de travail, de ce que nous, on a appelé l'esclavagisme moderne. Et ça, tant que nous, on ne renforce pas notre travail, d'une, vers les populations concernées des pays, deux, vers les travailleurs, les constructeurs en France, on aura du mal à faire changer les choses. Et du boulot, il y en a. Et donc, voilà quelques éléments. Parce qu'en plus, il faut quand même se poser la question, c'est au niveau des besoins financiers des travailleurs, des migrants, des travailleurs détachés. 40% en France des bénéfices produits par les entreprises multinationales sont délocalisés dans les paradis fiscaux. La France est le deuxième pays mondial en valeur capitalistique des dividendes, 57 milliards d'euros par an. Ça, c'était le chiffre 2018. Donc derrière, posons-nous aussi question financière de comment les salariés puissent bénéficier de cette manne financière. Et le Qatar qui est une nation très riche, ce sera à son honneur, ce sera à son honneur complet s'ils arrivaient à augmenter le salaire minimum. Ce qu'ils ont déjà fait, ils ont déjà fait le travail. Et ça, c'est parce que nous, on a poussé pour que cela change. Et dernière chose, pour finir, Vinci a signé un accord. Mais Vinci a signé un accord multinational au Qatar. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on a poussé. On l'a poussé en France sur... vous ne pouvez pas, monsieur Vinci, continuer à exploiter des gens comme ça. Et Vinci l'a fait parce que 40% de la valeur boursière de son entreprise est son image. Et à partir du moment où on commence à toucher la réalité financière d'une entreprise, évidemment qu'il signe des accords. Merci à tous pour votre écoute.
Yes, Jean-Pascal has finished. Thank you very much, Jean-Pascal. Yes, I think that your testimony showed how important it was also in this campaign. On the one side, the pressure we put on Qatar because of the World Cup, of course, but on the other side, also the importance of the unions in the homelands of the companies. You had to put pressure also on your companies at home in France, in Belgium, in Italy, and that was also very fruitful for our campaign. So thank you again. And I finally give the floor now to Guy Winandi. He is the Secretary of the European Works Council of Basics and a delegate at the CSC ACV Belgium. Guy, you have the floor.
Bien, bonjour à tous. D'abord, je voudrais remercier TOS pour l'invitation et je voudrais aussi te remercier Rita pour la direction de cette réunion. Je voudrais aussi commencer par remercier Daniel et Ashrafoul ainsi que Kassim pour leur témoignage. C'est toujours intéressant d'entendre le témoignage de collègues délégués dans des pays aussi éloignés. Et alors, pour parler de l'accord cadre international que B6 a signé, je voudrais dire que il n'était pas trop tard, mais il était quand même bien temps de signer cet accord. Il est venu, je pense, à point, vu l'organisation de la Coupe du Monde au Qatar en 2022. Donc, c'était une bonne chose. Ça n'a pas été sans mal. Comme l'a dit Gianni, c'est un accord qui a été signé volontairement par B6, mais il a quand même fallu pousser pour qu'il signe cet accord. Au niveau des résultats, on n'a pas beaucoup de recul. Effectivement, il a été signé le 14 décembre 2017, donc il y a, on va dire, à peu près 2 ans seulement. Donc on a très peu de recul, mais on a quand même pu voir qu'il y a eu des campagnes d'affichage pour le respect de cet accord. Cette campagne a été mise dans les pays en Arabie et bon, ça a eu un impact. On a vu cette campagne d'affichage aussi quand on est allé au Maroc, comme l'a dit Gianni aussi. On a vu, enfin moi j'ai vu une grosse différence au niveau de la sécurité. Ça, c'était un point vraiment important. Et voilà, c'est un accord qui a été aussi, il faut le dire, signé par le comité d'entreprise européen de chez B6. C'est assez inhabituel. En général, les accords cadres internationaux sont seulement signés par les entreprises et la direction et la tête des syndicats. Ici, il y avait un troisième signataire qui était les représentants des travailleurs, mais directs de l'entreprise. Donc voilà, Gianni a dit l'essentiel de ce qu'il y avait à dire sur l'accord, donc je ne vais pas m'attarder plus. Encore merci pour l'organisation de cette réunion.
Thank you, Guy, for your contribution. And I would like to ask Kasim if he has solved his technical problems now. Yes, Kasim, we go back to you, please.
Thank you very much. Actually, thank you, Rita, for the introduction. As you just mentioned, I'm a member of Nigerian Diaspora Organization in Qatar. At the same time, I coordinate for the African Communities National Human Rights Committee here in Qatar. I think part of the effort of Qatar government, making sure that the welfare of laborers and workers, expatriates in Qatar are taken care of, is why they established or the called on communities to have help desk at National Human Rights Committee in Qatar here. So for that, volunteers were called on to represent the communities. So of which I'm here, this is where I represent the Nigerian community and African communities as in general at National Human Rights in Qatar. So basically, what we do is when we have workers, especially people that work, for instance, on this, so far we are talking about the issues of FIFA World Cup. People that work on the construction sites, we have issues. Sometimes maybe their rights are not being taken care of, so they come to us, to make complaints. So at their complaints, we being close to the community or to the members of the community, we receive their complaints and try to. What we do is to escalate or to raise the complaints to the legal researchers at the National Human Rights to look into. Of course, we know that National Human Rights is not under the government, but they work independently. So what we do is to see that whenever there are violations of the rights of our community members, so when we raise these issues to the legal advisors or legal researchers at human rights, so they try to reach out to the companies who are violating the rights of these employees or their workers. So that is exactly actually what happens here. During this 2020 COVID-19, since the beginning of this year, I think the first incidence of COVID was in March in Qatar, was recorded in Qatar. So since then, there have been a series of, I can say, policies that the government tried to make, the Qatar government tried to make in terms of ameliorating the effects of COVID-19 on migrant workers in Qatar. So by extent, like some of the policies which I can actually see, which really helped a lot, is mandating companies to provide accommodation. So for companies, for instance, if some of the employees are having issues with the company and they are being terminated, so they need to make sure they keep them safe, in the accommodation. So it's mandatory for the company, whatever the status of the employee might be, should remain in the accommodation of the company, and also food should be provided. So that is something that is very, we can say, one of the gains of collaboration with the national human rights and the government government authorities in charge of making companies to comply with issues that are happening to migrant workers here. So that is that. And also, I think this year has witnessed reforms in terms of labor laws. You know, company employees are now able to change their worker, their employer. So if your current employer is not treating you well, so you can apply to the labor office or labor website to change to another company. So some of the rights of sometimes when companies, when employees, when they make complaints and they try to, put their complaints out there for them to change employee and the employers. So what normally happens is like you will have some kind of backlash from the company, probably to report, the employee or the worker as the runaway. These are being dealt with by counter policies from the government. And so when these kind of issues are raised, we discuss about it with the people in charge of policy makers here, especially people at the human rights. Yes, the rights of workers are still being violated when someone wants to change his employer and they is not able to change it because of some kind of fear of retaliatory measures from the company. So these are being handled. So I can say so far so good. It's been a good year, though COVID-19 is really hard on everyone. But in terms of how Qatar has handled it, has handled COVID-19, I think we can commend the government and what all agencies of government have been doing in terms of ameliorating the impact of the effect of COVID-19 on the migrant workers, especially the Africans here in Qatar. So that's what I can say. In addition to that, what I also see in terms of how the rights, during this COVID-19 era, some of the prisoners who are or criminals who may be convicted for one offense or the other. Okay, during this COVID-19, even though of course, they came to Qatar here to be migrants to work, as probably in some of the construction companies, some of them are being caught up in some kind of criminal activities, and they are being charged to court. And so during this COVID-19, I could see many of the offenses were being committed. Okay, and then the Ministry of Interior will reach out to the community leaders, to provide, to see how we can facilitate the repatriation back home, at least to decongest the prisons, so that the COVID-19 does not spread among the people that are inmates like that. So these are some of the issues that we as community leaders, have been called upon to assist. And in terms of also providing palliatives, like some workers, maybe they are not having, because of the effect of COVID-19, they are not able to have food. So we reach out to them in their various camps, through collaboration with the charity organizations in Qatar, the National Human Rights, and some other charity organizations. We reach out to these migrant workers to provide basic things that they need, so that they don't actually feel the impact of the COVID-19 so much. But I think there are still a lot of things to be done, and there are still a lot of improvements that need to be done, especially when now we can see I think the effect, the COVID-19 is not actually that much in Qatar now, because it has reduced a lot. So what many people are now complaining about is their inability to travel back home to go and visit their loved ones. So I think the government is doing something about it to make sure that they reduce the how do you call it, the quarantine period, because not so many can afford going back to their country, spending like 2 weeks in quarantine, and when they come back to Qatar to get their job, to join their workplaces, and they are not able to afford, hotel accommodation where they can be quarantined. Because we know that most of the migrant workers who work in the construction field, they are working, they live in camps. So, and if it's mandatory for them, if you go travel home, you have to come back, you have to stay like 2 weeks in the hotel, for quarantine before you can join your workforce, your workplace. So it's a bit challenging for some of them. So that's why they find it difficult to travel home. If I come back, how will I be able to afford the accommodation to stay in the hotel? So these are the issues that are happening, and I believe there are improvements, and they are working hard. And we are reaching out to people in charge to make sure these types of, especially the issue of quarantine is reduced, or to provide accommodation or facilities where people can stay. Especially this migrant, the blue collar workers, where they can stay. Spending the time they can be able to reunite with the companies. So these are the things. I believe there are still a lot to be done, and there are a lot. There's a lot of improvement in the welfare of workers here in Qatar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kasim. It seems that the quality was not so good for the interpretation, but I think we understood what you have said. And I want to thank especially our 3 representatives from our migrant communities in Qatar for the very important work you do for our migrant workers in Qatar. Thank you again. Before we come to the second part, I would like to ask Gülşah and Toss if there are any questions to our panelists.
Yeah, so far there are no questions for this round, Rita. So I think we can proceed to the COVID panel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Toss. So we proceed to the second part, which is on showcasing cooperation around COVID-19. This pandemic will carry on, and we all know that the vaccine access will take time and will be defined the rich-poor global divide. Therefore, we have to continue to be prepared to work with the reality of the coronavirus. So let us watch a video now. That's a video contribution from the Supreme Committee to give us an inside look on how they are dealing with COVID in their work sites. Please, can you start the video?
Our preparation starts in 17 January under supervision of Supreme Committee by increased awareness of our workers regarding the general respiratory symptoms. All our high risk here in the Education City Stadium, they undergo random COVID test, and after that, all the positive patients, we transfer them to SNAD.
We did have a medical infrastructure in place already, considering the Supreme Committee Workers' Welfare Standards. So we have a doctor available on site 24/7. That did help us a lot because the doctors were able to communicate with the MOPH. We did have a lot of testing that happened within the accommodation, so the workers did not really have to go out.
BW द्वारा भी ट्रेनिंग मिला, वेलफेयर ऑफिसर ने भी ट्रेनिंग दिया और हेल्थ सेफ्टी डिपार्टमेंट से भी हमको ट्रेनिंग मिला। उन्होंने हमको समझाया इस बीमारी के बारे में, इससे बचने के तरीके बताए।
हाँ, जैसा हम लोग का सिखाने के बाद हम लोग को वो लोग हिम्मत दिया है, हम लोग का डर थोड़ा निकलने लगा। तो अभी सुप्रीम कमेटी हम लोग को बताता था कि तुम लोग माँ बाप सबका जो हम लोग तुम लोग को सिखाया है ये तुम लोग को उधर बताओ, जिसमें वो लोग भी थोड़ा हिम्मत से जी सकते हैं, नहीं डर सकते हैं, उनको सिखाओ।
Mental health during the pandemic, the main concern of us at the medical team, the availability of the medical team 24 hours during the pandemic, it resolved a lot of problems. We tried that time to cover their idea, concern and expectation and answer all their questions.
हमारा डॉक्टर लोग बहुत हम लोग को केयर करता था। जब हम लोग क्वारंटाइन पे था, डेली फ़ोन करके पूछता था हमारा कुछ रेस्पिरेटरी सिम्टम्स है या नहीं है, होता है तो तुरंत उधर से मेडिसिन भेज देता। मैं 3 हफ्ता क्वारंटाइन पे था, पूरा सैलरी मिला है, सैलरी का कोई कटिंग नहीं है, फुल महीना का सैलरी मिला है।
I say thank you very much to the Supreme Committee for that contribution. I think that the measures on the stadium sites were probably good and perhaps better than in many other parts of the world, also included Europe. Beyond Qatar, we also have contributions from the United Kingdom and Australia. They will share their own system in dealing with COVID as an occupational health and safety program.
Rita, do you want me to kick that off?
I have, yes, of course. Yeah. So I call first Rob Miguel. He is a National Health and Safety Advisor for Unite in the United Kingdom. Rob, you will explain us your health and safety program.
Thanks, okay. Todd, I wonder if, yeah, that's brilliant. You're putting up a presentation. That's great. So first of all, thanks, Rita. It's really nice to be here. It's not in person, but we all know the reasons for that. But it's nice to see some friendly faces that I've seen in the past 5 or 6 years while this has been going on. Fortunately, I was at the last physical inspection to take place, and right in the middle of that, there was a concern about COVID. When I arrived there, it was, I'm not saying new on the scene, but it was taken lightly. During the middle of that, everything is as if hell broke loose, and I was quite impressed by the way that the contractors and the Supreme Committee actually acted to actually get stuff in place straight away. When I was there, pretty bad for us because we had difficulty getting out of country in the end. I want to approach this by looking at the virtual inspection that took place last time, and also make some comments, and also have comments about what's happening in the UK, and I think you'd be pretty interested in that. But I just want to say, first of all, this is, in my opinion, it's a very good example of collaboration between the Supreme Committee and also the workforce, which is instigated by the BWI. We did, in the last physical inspection, we did find issues there. But what I will say is that these were noted. There was a very long discussion about them, and hopefully, I have been back, hopefully they were implemented. And thanks to Marco Polo and Prince for accommodating the last inspections. It went quite well. Mainly because of them. We did have some issues that we picked up, but the actual inspections went fairly good. So I've got to say, I was quite moved by Ashraful Islam's account of things and his experience. It was a very moving experience. But what I will say that what he projected was that he felt that he had a voice and his voice was heard through this process. And I think that's thanks to, trade unions and the BWI. So you've seen on that video just now some of the precautions. By the way, the picture in the beginning, that lovely colourful picture, was an actual virus under electron microscope. And you would have seen there's a little colourful nod, and it was connecting to a human protein. It looks very colourful, but as we all know, that virus has proved to be extremely lethal to mankind, to the economy, and cause a lot of suffering. So these are some examples of some of the precautions that we asked about. And obviously, it's only a couple of examples, and were given to us by the Supreme Committee in the last virtual inspection. So awareness sessions, education of the workforce, taking temperatures. The experience in the UK about taking temperatures in this way is it can be very, very sketchy. So the process we would have on construction sites is that, particularly when you're using the the ones that's not contacting the person and is scanning the forehead, is that temperatures can rise for all sorts of reasons. So the process we have is temperature is taken, someone will sit for 10 minutes, then it's retaken. If it's still high, then another 50 minutes and it's retaken, just to make sure that it's accurate. And on larger projects, what we would have, similar to that you have on the sites in Qatar, is that there will be a medical room where someone may be taken to just to have those checks verified. Masks and sanitizers are distributed. Now, we've got an issue in the UK with masks in the sense that there's a wholesale use of face coverings. Face coverings are don't have a standard to them. They're not marked, CE marked. There is no standard in terms of ingress, and they're mainly used to actually stop the person spreading the virus. Now, they're being mandated in the UK, and Unite's position is that there is a standard as such, which is set by the World Health Organization, and that looks at the mask in terms of how many layers are recommended and the types of materials that are actually put into the mask. So I think that's important. I did ask the question of this virtual inspection, was the mask being used to a standard? And the answer was yes. So hopefully that's not the case. So you can see there as you go through isolation rooms, disinfection protocols, instigation of social distancing. In the UK on sites, there's no difference. What I will say is quite important, the social distancing, if you look at it in health and safety terms, is on the hierarchy of control is about middle way. So it's about eliminating hazards and then putting in technical control. So it's important when you can to actually fit barriers between people, whether that's barriers to distance people, or solid barriers if you're working on a reception or something. On a site, I can see from those films that's being done, and also marks and signs, etc. Toz, can you just move us on? Okay, so reduced working hours, 6 hours, 50% chairs on buses. What we have in the UK as comparison, some bus companies and bus companies that's running on larger projects will actually fit physical barriers to the bus. So you'll have a glass panel between that person and the person across the other side. And in fact, in bus drivers, in some cases, particularly on public transport, not mainly on site transport, the driver will be actually totally encased in a perspex screen. Okay, so I want to mention later on about what's coming out new in terms of the virus and what's being found, which I'll leave to the end. So you can see allocating 6 square meters. We would still, particularly in the accommodation, we would still have concerns because, as I'm going to explain later, the ability for this virus to travel in aerosols has now been recognized, and I think WHO are recognizing that. So even you've got 6 square meters, if you're in an enclosed space, you still have to take other precautions. And we're starting to recognize this now in the UK on construction sites and in other sectors. Right at the bottom there is, is upgrading the kitchen operations. If not, then the contracts will be changed. I did have concerns on the physical inspection about overcrowding, about the conditions in some of the canteens and the amount of time people were waiting. But the main thing in terms of COVID is that space and ensuring hygiene is kept up to spec there. Looking at the film, that's great. It's difficult when you're doing a virtual inspection to see exactly what's going on. So next slide, vulnerable workers. That is quite impressive there because workers with chronic diseases and those above 55 and have been temporarily demobilised from site in compliant accommodation. I would like actually to see that accommodation, or see a video of it. And they continue to receive salaries. It's in comparison to the UK, far superior to anything that we've got. And in fact, 55 years wouldn't be a figure that we'd be using. We're looking at 70 and above. The class is extremely vulnerable, and they would have to have comorbidities such as heart disease or extreme lung conditions before they were able to stay at home and shield, because that's what that is. So it's quite, I think, in comparison to what we've got and some of the other countries it's really quite good. And again, listen to Ashford at the issue about mental health and anxiety about their families, about their pay is extremely important. And I understand there are programs in place to look at that, but I think we can't underestimate the importance of mental health during this crisis. Even if you have to, you're 55 or you've got chronic diseases and you're asked to isolate or stay in your accommodation, can be quite daunting. Can we go to the next one, please? So communication with workers, you can see at the bottom there, there's communication in various languages, encouraging workers to share information, and there is a welfare committee. The issue of workers' pay, there's a comprehensive policy and in terms of sick leave. I'm just wondering, I may have asked the question, what is becoming apparent through this crisis is where people are being asked to self-isolate where they're not actually ill. So in the UK, if you have a positive case, then the system, the test and trace system, will actually contact those who've been in direct contact. And there's also the app, which is being used widely in Qatar. Those persons will be asked to self-isolate for 14 days, whether they got symptoms or not, whether they go on to take a test and it's positive or not. So if you've got the disease and it's been proven in a test, then it's 10 days or it's 14 days if you come in direct contact. Now, there is a criteria for that, which I haven't got time to go into. However, what's been proved to be a barrier in the UK is pay. It'd be interesting to see if there's full pay available, or because I'm looking at contractual sick pay there for workers there. We certainly have weaknesses in our system in the UK. So construction workers, a lot of them self-employed, won't self-isolate because they're not getting paid for it. So in the UK, we've introduced a system whereby if you are suffering hardship, you can claim £500 from a government scheme, which is run by local authorities, £500 for the 14 days self-isolation. Again, it's got weaknesses. And the weaknesses in there, you have to fulfill a criteria of being low paid, right? And you have to be claiming certain benefits. Therefore, you know, a site worker, carpenter, bricklayer, whatever, will be on a reasonable pay, and therefore they won't be able to claim it. Now, if you're a worker, and it doesn't matter which country you are, being told to isolate for a period of time without pay, what are you going to do? And I think it's a massive health and safety issue, because what workers tend to do is not to isolate. Okay, so it's a massive problem, and it'd be interesting to see how it's dealt with on those sites there. What I want to look at in the last part of my presentation is emerging evidence and why we need to be vigilant. So if we can just move the slide on. Right, so first of all, this is some figures from the UK in terms of ethnicity and the prevalence, or how harmful the virus is to certain groups. And you can see, and the reason I put this slide up is fairly obvious, because you have such a mixed community on those sites over there. And you can see that when you're looking at Bangladeshis, Black Afro-Caribbean, Pakistani, Indian, their ability to not just contract the virus, but also to have really harmful effects is higher. So in that group, what that's showing you is that they will have a more severe disease, and there's more chance of that person dying. So if you look at the system there, and it's going to be very difficult because you can't keep those people away from work. What you have to consider, though, is comorbidities in that group. So if they've got additional conditions, a lot of those groups suffer from diabetes. I think you have to be very careful in trying to establish if there's other comorbidities, and that person should be isolated. Okay, so if we went back to what I said about the system is impressive, if you're over 55 and you've got chronic diseases, you're off anyway. Okay, so can we move on to the next one? So what has become obvious in recent times, it was first thought that the transmission of the virus was purely in large droplets, and those droplets would, according to WHO, originally those droplets would fall to the floor after a meter. What that chart is looking at is the person there, you can see talking, spitting, singing, will produce large droplets. The red ones are fall into the ground, but there are smaller ones which have become aerosol based, and you can see that that person is standing within 2 meters. If you're in that range, you're going to be highly exposed if someone was contagious. The further you get away, the particles are smaller. Okay, so what this means is two things in terms of going forward is ventilation in indoor spaces, particularly when you're looking at canteens, for example, and some of those sites have very enclosed spaces down under, because I've seen them, it's a bit of a catacomb on some of those. You have to ensure that they're well ventilated, and also there's a supervised use of masks. Okay, so you can see it's a massive problem. It's good. The virus is aerosol based, and that's been the scientific evidence is establishing that. In the UK, where we've got indoor workplaces such as food production, there are massive outbreaks. So it's 130 positive cases in about 200 or 300 workers. So it's fairly obvious that we have to be very vigilant. We go to the next one. So come to mass, and I didn't mention before, if you have a look, that the top person there is two people that fairly close to each other, not wearing a mask. You can see the amount of viral spread there. or the spread, possible contaminated spread. And the thing about aerosols is the smaller the particle, and that's the same if you're dealing with chemicals, the greater chance that that particle or those smaller aerosols will get into the lower part of the lung and cause more severe disease. Okay, when it gets into the upper respiratory tract, it's not severe. As soon as it comes down, it's small. And you can see the bottom picture. What that's showing is the need to have masks, and you can see that those masks actually stop transmission. What I will say, and this is very important, I don't know if you've tried wearing a mask for 8 hours or 6 hours or 4 hours. Not a very pleasant experience, okay? You go on a flight and it's the same. So what needs to be built into mask wearing is first a set standard. Secondly, those masks can only be worn for a certain amount of time, and that person has to have a break. Now, I would imagine, as the same in the UK, that's not occurring when you're dealing with these type of masks. People will be working 4 hours, have a break, and then come back. In the UK, if you was to wear a FFP3/2, the recommended breaks are after 1 hour. Okay, is to come out and not wear the mask. Now, that is very, very important, but it's been proven that wearing these masks will lower transmission. Now, come to the accommodation, that's going to be very, very important. Just having 6 meters of space, there's still a risk of transmission in these circumstances. And it's very important to improve the ventilation, including all the other stuff, hand washing, cleaning, and all the rest of it. Okay, so I'll just end with some of the things that we need to look at is that to improve the testing regime, and that's what we're trying to do here on sites. Some large sites have their own testing regimes. HPC, which is the biggest construction project in Europe, is a nuclear new build. They have their own testing regime. They will work with the government test and trace system. They're identifying positive cases and they're isolating people. I'm not saying that's on full pay, but they will get some sort of sick pay. So there needs to be improvements in that in the UK, and obviously that applies to Qatar as well. And the important thing is, and I've mentioned this before, workers are able to self-isolate with pay. If you're telling someone to self-isolate that hasn't got any symptoms, as I've said before, it's very difficult for them to make that choice if they're not getting anything. Improving ventilation and also the masks that I'm talking about is that's what we're doing on sites. And I think just to end is what is very encouraging is the progress with the vaccine. Now, there is an anti-vaccine lobby out there. I don't know what your personal interpretation of this, but the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine is working on a very new, well, I say new concept, fairly new concept in the last 10 years. I won't go, again, can't go into the details of that on here, but it's using a message which is put into the body, which alerts the body, and then you produce antibodies, etc. What I'm keen to promote is that, first of all, is governments need to support this, and governments need to support schemes which ensure that people all around the world, no matter how much money that country got, they will receive these vaccines in good time. Okay, it's very important if we're going to actually beat this virus. The Pfizer one and Moderna specifically have a vaccine which can be moderated if the virus actually mutates. So very good system. But I think we need to support that, and we need to support the finances of that. So I just want to end with a tribute to Jin Suk, because the last time I saw Jin Suk was when I spoke at a conference in Qatar. Just to say, she was a great lady, fantastic activist, and a wonderful mind, and she'll be really, really missed. Rita, thank you. I hope I didn't go on too long, because I know Nigel can speak for quite a long time as well, so he might be on for about an hour. I don't know. Okay, thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Yes, you were a little bit long, and so I hope that Nigel that comes now will be a little bit shorter, because we have yet overcome time. But we will finish this session as was planned. And please, Nigel, if you can be a little bit less long than Rob was. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Rita. And I will anyway, because it is 1:45 here in Melbourne in Australia. So I will keep it as short as we can. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the invite, Tos. Really appreciate it, just to sort of share our view of what's been happening here in Australia. Going back to March, when COVID hit us for the first wave here, we had it pretty well under control. When I say that, all works, it didn't really affect our construction one bit. But what we did do, we started talking and started lobbying governments and all the stakeholders, and we came together as a group in order on how to combat this terrible pandemic that was crippling the world. On construction, and then the second phase come down in the southeast of Australia, in Melbourne, where I live, in Victoria, and the second wave hit us pretty hard. Now, fortunately, we've got a Labor government here, and they shut the borders, and nobody could come in or out, pretty quick smart. And also we're lucky and we're pretty blessed that we are an island nation also, so we can control the borders in that regard, and very similar to New Zealand. Some of you might have read about New Zealand and their plight, and they've done a great job over there also. So with the groups that we developed, we started working with employer groups, especially, which as unions we haven't really had a great relationship in past years. So they wanted to keep building the buildings. The government wanted to keep the economy rolling, and we wanted our members to keep working. It was as simple as that. But we wanted them to work in a safe environment, and there was no there was no ifs or buts. It had to be. So we started on. There was a team, and they started working on this. It was a Victorian guidelines for building in construction industry during this COVID times. So, and this group, there were professors involved, the chief health ministers were involved, and the unions were involved on behalf of the workers. Now, during all this time with all the COVID here, we've been lucky enough that we've only had 150 positive construction cases around Australia of being infected by COVID. So we have been very lucky, and I think we've done something very well. And the reason we went to the government, what we were telling them was, we work in the high risk environments. We can adopt policies, we can put policies, procedures in place and adhere to them, unlike some other industries. So we were really pushing for the fact that we can keep this safe, we can keep our members safe, and we can keep the buildings going and keep the economy going from the construction sector. And we were lucky enough to do that. We were fantastic people on this panel on all sides. And then we had to get the WorkSafe regulator on board, which are the ones that can actually penalise people that aren't doing the right thing. The best thing that we did out of all of it, so with and this being an OH&S forum on the quorum, what we did with all our members that are occupational health and safety representatives for the union, for these companies, we trained them in tracking and tracing. So if there was to be a positive result on their sites, they could actually track and trace that person and anybody else. And a bit like what Rob was saying as well, there was plenty of incentives here through the government, so you could get so if you were to test, if you were to put a test in, initially the test would take 3 to 4 days to come back with the results. And it was a problem because some people are in that casual sort of workforce, and there was no way known that they wanted to miss out on 2, 3, or maybe even 4 days of work while they get that result back from that test. So that was a problem in itself. So government started paying, if you did go for the test, you used to get 400 Australian dollars for every day that you missed out until you got the test. So what that did as well, we started through some industry funds that we have here. They bought a couple of big buses, like medical buses, and we went around all the big construction sites, and they were testing. There was just testing then and there, and they were prioritised again in order to keep the economy going. Because bear in mind, Melbourne was pretty much shut at this time, the city of Melbourne, and construction was still going. So they turn around some of these tests in 24 hours for the workers, which was fantastic at that time. I know they've progressed a bit more now with some of the testing. So the key thing, if there's a message that I can share with everybody out there, is we got all our representatives involved, the occupational health and safety reps involved, like the gentleman in Doha and in Qatar were just saying then how they're involved with the Supreme Committee and want to keep on pushing. I encourage everybody, get involved, ask the questions. There's no silly question. Ask the question. There's so much going on. During this time, the darkest time that we had in Melbourne was when the government demanded that we shut down 75% of our industry. So all jobs had to be, the workforce had to get down to 25% capacity. Again, that was a problem, and it brings out all the anxiety and the mental well-being issues of people being at home and not knowing where the next dollar is going to come from, basically. But that was only for, when I say a short period, it would have been a long time for some of the people. It was a 6 weeks shutdown in that case. We're back to 100% now here in Melbourne and in Australia, and just testament to all the hard work that everybody's put in, not only in the construction industry, but all the sectors around, in Melbourne especially. Today was the 24th day that we've had 0 cases, 24 straight days, 0 cases. So it's fantastic, it's doable, but we have to be vigilant. The mask, Rob talked about the mask. I think the mask, when they first go, I'll be honest, I'll put my hand up. I thought it was a bit of a, because I've always been done a lot of work in asbestos, and your mask has got to be fitted and sealed and the likes. And I thought we're going to have to go down that track. But as soon as we started using the mask, we could see the drop. And not only that, in Melbourne here in the Southern Hemisphere, we've gone through our winter, and the flu cases in Melbourne had dropped something like 64% just by using these masks. So there's a lot to be said, and I plead, I plead with everybody out there. It does get hard for construction workers whether you're tying steel or whether you're laying concrete and you're trying to wear this mask and all that. I understand the frustration, and I really get it. But we still really need to sort of keep pushing this until we get on top of this beast of a thing that we're dealing with. I could go on forever in a day, Rita, but I plead with everybody, just if there's anything that you don't think that's right over there, something we can do better, there is no silly question. Ask the question. And that goes to every worker out there. We're all leaders here that we are on this forum today. Just get out there and ask the question. And it doesn't matter whether that's an employer, a boss, a government body, does not matter. Ask the question in order to even keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, your workmates safe, and so we can beat this thing together. On that note, our thoughts are here in Australia. With thoughts and prayers are with you all over the world, in every corner of the globe. We're all dealing with this pandemic. And I wish you all the very, very best, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nigel. And I understood that you and Rob have been part of the inspections in Qatar. We are grateful that you have brought your expertise into the BWI and SC cooperation, and even now in this time of pandemic. Again, thank you very much, both of you. Finally, I call now Marco Ferrer. He will share how the workers' communities in Qatar are continuing their coordination and cooperation during the pandemic. I heard that the solidarity was also extended to food distribution to affected workers. Marco is the workers' community liaison officer of BWI in Qatar, and we are proud to introduce him to you. And he is to give an overview of BWI and the migrant group's initiative and actions in this challenging time of COVID. Marco, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rita. Good afternoon, everyone from our side of the world. Let me be quick then. The two concluding points at the end of my short presentation can be actually obvious for many of us. That first, organizations of workers are essential. And secondly, in the pursuit of workers' rights welfare, governments and employers should be more predisposed in this endeavor. And so in concrete terms, how did that work here in Qatar, especially during this period of pandemic? Okay, so let me share my brief presentation. Protecting migrant workers in Qatar amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, the one major challenge for us during the height of movement restriction is getting connected, maintaining, sustaining connection with the workers. And so, right, for the first time here in Qatar, we had a virtual celebration of Labor Day. Well, it's also the first time I think that the Ministry of Labor had a celebration, a Workers' Day celebration organized by the workers. Okay, organized for the workers in partnership with them. It has always been the government here organizing. So it was the first time, well, it was virtual, but it was the first time that we had this celebration. Again, virtual. Secondly, this one is very interesting because this is a first for us here in Qatar. Okay, this is the first for us using online technologies. Okay, for workers' education and information. This is the first for us, and this happened. Remember, we did this at the time when the pandemic was at its height, almost at sometime in April. This is in April, and this is supposedly the month, the Osh month here in Qatar, and we are celebrating the International Workers' Memorial Day, right? So, and then the need for disseminating information to protect your health, to protect your rights is real for a lot of migrants here. But we have to be mindful that this is a lot of workers are also suffering from, as Asraful said, oh no, I'm dying. What happens with the family? And so at this point in time, we thought of we don't go very serious programs online. So we thought of infotainment format. So, yes, so you see this is I'm actually referring to a singing challenge here in Qatar at the height of the pandemic. Because, and this is with the Filipino groups, because as you know, many of you would know, Filipinos, when we are happy, we sing. When we are sad, we sing. So might as well use this as a way of getting through the information in terms of protecting health and protecting their rights in the midst of this pandemic. And so, yeah, so this was our first time, and then, then we reached a lot of people, managed to reach a lot of people, thousands of them actually participated viewing the program. And we had then this picture is very good because we had the International Domestic Workers Federation here. We had a representative from the Philippine government, of the Philippine Labor Office. We had a representative from the Ministry of Labor, and representatives, of course, from our migrants workers associations here. So it's a collaborative effort. Number two, this one, look at this. This, we organize a monitoring group, what's happening on the ground, because we cannot, movement restrictions, we cannot easily, of course, go around. So we use, again, technology, we organize volunteers to give us feedback what's happening on the ground. And then later on, now it has evolved into a labor education and information group. Disseminating information that pertains to the rights and welfare of the workers. That's one other experience, the evolution, right? In the middle of all of this, issues of the crisis, we have a spike in the number of complaints, which is understandable in a lot of places. And so because of our partnership with the Labor Minister of Qatar, the associations, even BWI, had become a go-to organization for many workers here. And so we had received a lot of labor complaints, and it was so nice, even at the period when a lot are suffering, okay, losing jobs, losing they're getting repatriated. Many have received their money claims here. We were more than 1 million have for several groups of workers. They managed to get their claims, because at the end of the day, and I thought, at the end of the day, of course, the greatest contribution that we can have, I'm practicalist about the money that they take home to their family, right? So that's one area that we did. Yeah, the humanitarian relief program is here. You have Indians delivering food to the Pakistanis. You have Filipinos delivering food relief to the Sri Lankans, and you have Filipinos delivering food to the Africans. So I mean, there is solidarity in the period of crisis in here. That's I think that's again, we can only do so much. We yes, it's a large number. We managed to distribute more than 3,000 food packs, but it's not enough. But then we have the government here who has the resources to deliver this the food packs. And so the government partnered with the migrant community associations, and they have hundreds of thousands actually. But directly with the communities, we collaborated with them in delivering not less than 100,000 food packs to the workers, right? And so finally, again, the capacity of migrant workers. Okay, that's the driver here for change. The capacity of migrant workers association to initiate program in the spirit of solidarity. And on the other hand, we have to have a government, a host government, and hopefully companies as well, such as the companies, as we heard in these sessions, that are willing to collaborate with associations in the spirit of labor reforms. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Marco, for sharing these very nice pictures about solidarity. Thank you. I don't know if there are questions now for our panelists. I ask Tos.
we're over time, we can proceed to the last part of the day's program.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Sorry for everybody who wanted to ask questions, but we are over time. So we have to close now this session 4, wherein we heard the migrant workers themselves, and that is very important, I think. They shared their experiences and expectations with us. This is a good introduction to the closing panel of tomorrow, because tomorrow we will look at the country's labor reforms. We have heard also the different union leaders from the home countries of the multinational companies involved in Qatar. The solidarity is truly alive, and we hope to carry the torch of fair games to Italy and France as they are preparing their own mega sporting events. So thank you again, everyone, to the panelists and to the audience. And now I call Nina Kreutzmann and gave over to her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It has been really interesting, and BWI is so truly international. I mean, we have been, we just came from Australia to Qatar and Switzerland, and now we are in Finland. This has been, this is the darkest time of the year in the Nordic countries, but this day has been, it's been like a glorious sunshine today. And I like to think that this was because of our conference and because of the honoring Jin Suk, whom I miss personally much, and I think we all miss her and her work. So I'm really happy to see you all and think about Jin Suk. Well, as we close this first day of our conference, I'm glad to hear the presentations, the debates, and the ideas to move forward. Thank you to all the panelists and the moderators, and of course to all the participants. We had 4 sessions today, and they gave us models that can inspire us for other mega sporting events, realities that we have to manage with regard to workers' rights, and inspirations of social dialogue and practical cooperation. Needless to say, we still have the collective tasks to do as we create a legacy of decent work in every World Cup. We will now move to a symbolic ceremony, or a graduation ceremony, if you will. This video puts faces to those who are building the stadium, but at the same time are committed to solidarity and welfare. The elected workers' representatives in the workers' welfare forums or committees are ensuring that migrant workers' voices are heard and working conditions are improved and sustained. A challenging task of maintaining industrial peace and fairness in workplaces. The BWI and the Supreme Committee, in recognition of this important role of workers' representatives, have jointly administered a training and development program that aims to enhance the representatives' skills and competency. Before this pandemic crisis, 4 batches of the said training program were successfully trained, producing 94 graduates of different nationalities. Graduates who continue to address workplace issues, learnings that they have gained and worked for during the trainings. Through this short video, we would like to give due recognition and very warm thanks to the training graduates and our dedicated workers' representatives. So let's meet some of them. So thank you. And with that, I formally close today's session. And we look forward to another very important panel tomorrow on labor reforms. So please enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope I will see you tomorrow again.